Director of the Labor Center at University of Iowa, and I'm here with my colleague Paul Iverson, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Right now, hi, I'm Paul Iverson. I'm a labor educator at the University of Iowa Labor Center and the coordinator of the pre-apprenticeship program.
So we are going to try to spend no more than 30 minutes on our presentation this afternoon, giving a quick introduction and overview of the pre-apprenticeship program that we've been developing over the past year. And I want to start again by welcoming everybody who's joining us. If you'd like to introduce yourself and let us know if you're affiliated with a particular organization, you can let us type that into the chat box. That would be great to know who's here right now. And if you have questions, there is a Q&A box on the webinar screen. So please type any questions in there, and we will attempt to respond to as many as we can within the time available. We are recording this session, and so we want everyone to know that ahead of time, that any of the discussion may be recorded and shared with other audiences in the future. So we are going to start with a very, very basic question. What is apprenticeship? And I know we have people joining us in some cases from organizations who are already very, very familiar with the definition of this term in our modern context. I'm going to turn it over to Paul for a minute to give some context to where the term and the concept and the modern day version of apprenticeship has come from, particularly because I know we also have folks joining us who are new to apprenticeship, which of course is exactly why our program exists, is to try to introduce apprenticeship and connect people to apprenticeship who haven't had experience with it before.
Apprenticeship actually has a long tradition. It has been a tradition for thousands of years for skilled crafts workers to pass on their skills to others and to protect the integrity of the trade by making sure that people that are skilled in the trade are the ones that are working in that trade. So going way back to medieval guilds, there used to be a tradition that a skilled crafts worker known as a master would take on an apprentice and then teach that apprentice the tools of the, give them the tools of the trade and teach them the methods of properly doing the work. As they got through the process, they would give, they would teach their apprentice certain code words. And then when you got all the way through the apprenticeship, then if you deemed that apprentice to be fully qualified, that person would be able to go to another village and set up their shop. So if you were a stonemason in one village and you had an apprentice and that apprentice became fully skilled, they could journey to another location. The reason that they had been taught the secret codes is throughout Europe and England and the rest of Europe, there would be masters that would have control over their trade within a certain area. And if they saw someone come into their area to one of their villages and set up a shop as a stonemason, they would come and challenge that stonemason and ask them certain questions. And they would have to be able to give the coded responses. And if they did, then the master would know this person was taught by another master and found to be sufficiently skilled, and then say, okay, you can open up a shop here. It protected the people of the village. It protected the trade itself by not having people that didn't know what they were doing trying to do it. And so some of the terms that are used in apprenticeship now go back to that system. In that system, at the end, you had a credential that you could take with you. And to this day, people as they graduate from the program are known as journey workers because they have a nationally recognized credential that says anywhere in the United States that I'm skilled in this craft. Instead of teaching people secret codes, we give them a card now that says that they're a journey worker, but the idea is the same. The skilled person in the craft feels an obligation to teach people coming up in the craft the proper way of doing things in their craft. When they are done, that person can journey elsewhere and do their job and teach the next generation and teach other people to do the job. And so that's been the way that the skills have been passed on for generations. And so still to this day, we have apprentices, we have journey workers, we have masters, all of which go back to that medieval system, which was brought to the United States during colonization, and then over time has been formalized, and in the 20th century became federal law that now specifies what you have to do to be a registered apprenticeship program. And among the things that you have to do, you have to teach people in the classroom, you have to give them on-the-job, hands-on training, and at the end, you have to give them a nationally recognized credential. Aspects of what have been apprenticeship from the first recognition of apprenticeship.
So when we're talking about apprenticeship today, we're talking about it in that modern context of registered apprenticeship, which is meeting standards set by the U.S. Department of Labor. And we're talking about programs in which once you are accepted, you're paid while you are training to learn the craft and learn the skills associated with it. So as the Department of Labor often says, these are earn while you learn programs. So our pre-apprenticeship that we're going to be focusing on tonight is designed to connect people with the opportunity to qualify for, apply for, and ideally enter and be retained in a registered apprenticeship program. In these programs, you're getting both classroom plus on-the-job training from the start. And as Paul said, at the end, you're earning a nationally recognized portable journey card that you could, in theory, take to any state in the country, and in many cases into Canada, and be recognized as a journey worker qualified to work in certain, on certain job sites. And as many of you already know, what we're talking about are apprenticeships that are gateways into high skill occupations with significant job security, living wages and benefits. And even in our COVID-19 context, I think many of us still feel fairly confident that while we've seen lots and lots of dips in the number of people working temporarily, the construction industry is not by any means disappearing. And one of the motivations or impetus for many of the pre-apprenticeship programs up and running like ours is the reality that there's a significant generational shift going on in the construction industry, and many baby boomers at or near retirement age, and a real focus on replenishing the number of people in skilled trades. So these are great job opportunities, and many times people look at them from a distance and ask, well, how do I connect with that? Where do I sign up to get on this pathway? That's what our pre-apprenticeship program is designed to do. I included just a couple of examples from a recent publication summarizing what the eventual journey level wage and benefit scale is in the eastern and central Iowa markets, just to give people a sense. We're going to be noting that there are 16 different trades affiliated with our program. So these are just a couple of the examples, but just to emphasize that these are clearly living wage job opportunities, and that our goal ultimately is to connect, especially people from underrepresented groups, with those living wage job opportunities. So our program is clearly a reflection of new efforts among a number of parties, government agencies, contractors, unions, and other industry leaders, making conscious efforts to open up registered apprenticeship opportunities, including to populations who historically have not had equal access to those opportunities. And there are a number of reasons and motivations for that. I talked about the predicted skilled trades shortage and in some trades an already existing skilled trade shortage, and the search for more and ideally more qualified applicants. We also know that this is a slide that was actually initially prepared far before the COVID-19 context, when we knew there were subsets of populations in Iowa, even with a low unemployment rate overall, who were underemployed or working 2 or 3 jobs rather than one that was better wages and benefits that could sustain them and their families. We know that's a much bigger crisis now. And so the population of underemployed and unemployed Iowans has clearly ballooned in recent weeks. And so we hope that programs like ours are a good fit for people who are in some cases changing careers or searching for first careers that are associated with living wage jobs. So our labor center, some of you may be familiar with our center already. For those who are not, one of the reasons that our center we have decided is a very good fit for work in this area is that we're really building on 7 decades of worker education and experience in directly reaching working populations across the state, and also building on many, many years of deep relationships already established with people in the skilled trades, people who are leaders in union and joint apprenticeship training programs. And so we have been very grateful that many of those relationships have already borne fruit in the last years we've launched this program with many, many enthusiastic partners who are interested in making sure that it succeeds. And you know, we can certainly do on our end the best job we can of recruiting and preparing applicants. We also need partners on the other end who are apprenticeship training coordinators who are eagerly awaiting applicants and are thinking in partnership with us how to make sure that applicants from underrepresented groups succeed once they arrive in their programs. So that's a little bit of context for the work that we've been doing to make this program work. So our pre-apprenticeship program, and we are recognized by the Department of Labor as a quality pre-apprenticeship program, which means our program has already developed and shown that we're meeting certain standards. We offer orientation, skills, preparation, and connections. As I said, part of what we're trying to do is help people with some of the relationships that it often takes to be a successful applicant in some trades. And we are actively recruiting members of underrepresented groups. That's one of our primary goals. And I'm going to let Paul explain for a second. That's language that the Department of Labor uses, and I'll let him define a little bit what they mean by underrepresented groups.
Yeah, and the Department of Labor has defined groups that are underrepresented within existing registered apprenticeship groups, in that there's a lower percentage of those people in the registered apprenticeship programs than there are in the general population. There are 5 groups that are the focus of the DOL's Quality Pre-Apprenticeship Program. And those are youth ages 16 to 24, women, people of color, people with disabilities, and veterans. So those are the 5 groups that we're trying actively to recruit. But we let anybody, anybody that wants a career in the trades and could use help in getting into an apprenticeship program. We don't discriminate in the program itself, but we're actively trying to recruit people that are underrepresented to help diversify the trades.
Yeah, and I would just add that although it's not a population that is specified in the definition of underrepresented groups, the other a set of discussions that we're actively engaged in is how to make sure our program is equipped to serve formerly incarcerated Iowans and Iowans with criminal records who are looking for a new career after they've served their time. And so, we welcome suggestions for moving that partnership forward as well. And we'll talk in a second about some of the details of the curriculum of the apprenticeship readiness course that we've been offering for several months now. And it is, as I said, already recognized by the Department of Labor for following approved curriculum standards that will adequately prepare people to be solid applicants once they're through it. So the main goals of our program are to really support people in overcoming some of what we know from lots and lots of research have traditionally been barriers for some people to getting into an apprenticeship program. Historically, and Paul gave us a little bit of that context, master craftsmen in many cases passed on to journeymen, passed on to apprentices the knowledge about a craft or a skill through very informal networks, sometimes family networks. And we know that in our modern world, recruiting people from those limited networks is not enough anymore in our current context. And so having to know somebody is no longer the way that most trades want to limit their pool of applicants. So what we're often trying to do is make sure that people have the skills, confidence, and also the connections that are necessary to be successful in the application process and once they start the training program. Our goals are also linked to many goals that Iowa has as a state overall. So including building the talent pipeline for the construction industry across the state, and helping employers and contractors meet their own diversity goals to make sure that they're complying with existing laws. And we know that there's some significant changes underway being driven from the federal level down and what those expectations will be in coming years. So we have been for almost a year now offering a 4-week apprenticeship readiness course with some success. And in the COVID-19 context, we have quickly tried to move that program online to continue making it available, even though we can't do it using face-to-face instruction right now. So what we're here to do tonight is let people know about the next course that is around the corner. We are in the second to last week of our sort of experimental first online cohort right now. And I think we've worked out a lot of the details of how to deliver this material very effectively using Zoom, which is a free app that we're using right now. So we are starting another summer 4-week session that will be open to anyone statewide in the online format starting July 21st. The course is going to meet Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 5 to 9 typically, and most of the day on Saturdays during those 4 weeks. We have an application form that is now open, and I'll show people how to get to that in a minute. We're targeting a class size of around 40 to make sure we can continue significant quality interactions with everybody who's enrolled. We do have a little bit of leeway in that, so we certainly don't want to limit people's opportunities depending on who applies. And then we anticipate people graduating in August before the K-12 school year starts. And then we'll be focusing on how to place as many of the graduates in registered apprenticeship programs in the coming year. And I want to pause for a second to see, Paul, if you have anything to add, and just flip to this next slide, which gives a little bit more detail about the topics that we cover during the 4 weeks. And I will, Paul, let you weigh in since you have designed and are often leading many of those sessions.
Yeah, and so talking to apprenticeship coordinators and community groups and seeing what apprenticeship coordinators need to see in applicants who are their successful applicants, what issues different community groups will have. We've found that there are both what you might call hard skills and soft skills that sometimes provide a barrier. So we have, you'll see on the list of things that we teach are some things like tools, materials, and blueprint reading that are very specific skill-based, but things like financial literacy, because trades workers are paid weekly when they work. They don't get paid time off. And that's been a frustration that apprenticeship coordinators have expressed, is that sometimes really good candidates quit the program and go work somewhere else because they were laid off for 3 weeks and they couldn't afford not to have a paycheck for those 3 weeks. And so helping people with how to manage their money before they get into the apprenticeship. A lot of the apprenticeship programs, almost all of them, use interviews to choose their candidates. So how to communicate and interview well to to accentuate your positive traits that you want people to know, this is why I'd be a good candidate. We spend time with that. All of the trades use math. And so we spend a fair amount of time with math. It's not really complex math, but it is, basically what would be first year algebra kind of level. Add, subtract, multiply, divide, whole numbers, fractions, decimals, and basic geometry, lengths and areas and volumes of different geometric shapes. That's because one, it's necessary on the job, but two, it's required in a lot of the exams that apprentice candidates have to pass in order to be admitted into the program. We have been doing first aid, CPR, and OSHA 10 certification for all of our pre-apprentices. That's gotten a little bit tougher in this environment. We managed with the OSHA 10 to have people with this latest cohort, but that had to be done live because the OSHA instructor did not have certification to do it online. First aid and CPR is going to have to be deferred until we can do that live as well. So we will continue to make those available, although they may not be available during the initial 4 weeks, but when they become available, people will still be able to go to the classes free as the rest of the program is. And the final one, visits to training facilities, is a really important part of it. But again, with COVID, we've had to face the realities of training centers that aren't open at the present time. So we're working with virtual tours of centers and then making it available to people to actually go to a live tour and do some hands-on things if there is a program that's willing to do that and we can do so in a safe manner.
And one very important part of the curriculum is exposing people to the wide variety of trades and apprenticeship training options that exist in our state, and particularly exposing them to crafts that they may not have known existed when they start the program. I mean, I think in our experience over the last few months, we can say that lots of people get started thinking, well, I want to be an electrician. And it's great to want to be an electrician. But it also turns out to be the case that, most of us have heard of and are familiar with what maybe the bare minimum of what electricians do, but most people don't start off being aware of some of the other options on this very long list, or the important roles that all the different trades on this list play in complex projects. And so part of our job, we really feel, is to give people an opportunity to explore before they make a decision, to think about the variation in what their skills are and what various training programs are going to emphasize, and how they want to, so that they make a good choice with a program that's going to be a good fit. And Paul, do you want to say anything else about that before we keep going?
Yeah, I mean, one of the points that you make, plumbers and electricians, that's what most people are aware of. But we've had a lot of people that come in, so a lot of people come in, if they either have no preference or they express electricians or plumbers if they express a preference. And then we have a lot of people that once they are exposed, I had a couple people that wanted to be electricians, and we had an instructor from the bricklayers doing blueprint reading on Saturday. And when he was done, they came up to me and they said, until he was here, I never thought about bricklaying, but after 5 minutes of listening to him talk about what bricklayers do, I think I'm going to apply to that program. The same's been true for sheet metal workers. Mike McCulloch from the sheet metal workers here in Cedar Rapids, when you get to see what they do, and when we've done a tour there and you take a piece of sheet metal and you turn it into a small piece of duct work within the course of an hour or so, it really shows the skills, and people find out that this is a really skilled craft, and an interesting craft, and people say, you know, hey, this is something that I want to do. So exposing people to all of the various options, I always encourage people to keep an open mind and see which of the trades really grabs your attention, because all of the thing that all of them have in common is when you get through the apprenticeship program, you become a journey worker, you're going to have a good life. They pay wages and benefits that are going to give you a comfortable lifestyle for your life and open up opportunities beyond just being a journey worker. But if all you ever do is become a journey worker and work with the tools, you will have a great life. And that's what we're, you know, that's our, at least my motivation for being in this, is to change people's lives, to get people out of dead-end jobs that they're in and into a career that's going to be able to sustain them and their family into the future.
Right. And the other thing that we're developing is over time, clearly, as we begin to graduate a critical mass of pre-apprentices, we want to have the ability to stay in touch with them ourselves, but we also want to help them build networks with each other, networks of support, particularly for people who are coming from underrepresented groups and entering a trade where they might be in the minority, at least as they start out. And so we are actively working on support for a Women in the Trades network, which we're launching with several events this year, including a Zoom meeting that's coming up about a month from now. And also thinking about particularly how to support the apprentices of color who are coming through our program, and the apprentices for whom English is not their first language, who are adapting to life in the US as immigrants at the same time they're beginning a training program. So that is another active part of our mission. We've mentioned some of these considerations that have changed and sort of reshaped the way we're approaching the program in recent weeks. We are attempting to deliver almost all of the curriculum online, replicating almost, most of what we could have covered in person. We're mailing materials directly to people's home addresses so that they still get the hard copy printed materials and don't have to rely on, we found that it's hard to assume that people have access to a printer or will be able to access some of the critical printed, especially math material that they need otherwise. As Paul said, we are playing it by ear to determine, we certainly will have virtual training center visits available, site visits, so that people get into and get to experience at least on screen what some of these facilities look like. It's possible that we'll be able to do some in-person visits or to schedule some in-person visits later in the year that we would invite the summer online participants to, even if they couldn't do that at this time. And same with the components of the curriculum that in some cases require, because of regulatory standards, some face-to-face instruction. So I wanted to let people know that. I would say the biggest COVID-19 impact by far on our program has been the sort of suspension of the ability to place some of our recent pre-apprentice graduates. So, we had 2 cohorts who completed the program in the early part of the year from January to March. And many of those are still, waiting in limbo until training centers reopen, until interview processes start up again. And so we are continuing to stay in touch with those folks in hopes that we can begin the placement process within the year. So I want to close by making sure people know how to follow up, and the application process for the July cohort that is beginning in a few weeks. So this is with our email address, our website, and I'm going to try to quickly share my other screen so that people can see the website. Our website is laborcenter.uiowa.edu, and both everything we spoke about tonight plus some additional print materials, flyers with more explanation, a fact sheet about the program are all available on that website under the under the pre-apprenticeship program tab. So let me see if I can show that.
Perfect.
Is it showing up?
It was momentarily,
And then it disappeared. Here we go.
but now you have to reshare it.
Okay, there we go. And that includes, we are happy to take applications online, and there is an online form that people can fill out, which will automatically go to us. That's probably the easiest way to apply. We're also happy to take print applications, and people can either phone us at 319-335-4145, the number that was on the slide, or email us to request a copy of the print application. It's also possible to download and print the hard copy application from our website as well. So I think at this point we are very willing to take any questions that folks have.
And right now, I don't see any questions. So if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A section.
I do see that there are a couple of questions in the chat here. To repeat the hours of the course, that's an excellent question. So Tuesday and Thursday evenings from 5 to 9, and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. There are some Saturdays that are slightly variable, where we might not go till the full 4 o'clock, but if people reserve those times, that would be safe on their schedules. How old do you need to be is also an excellent question. Paul, do you want to take that one?
Yes. To enroll in in the pre-apprentice program, we ask that people be 16 or over. We just need to understand that most apprenticeship programs will not admit you until you're 18 years old. But people that are between their junior and senior years would be great. Even people between their sophomore and junior years as well, to just get a start so that they can be ready to hit the ground running when they do graduate. We allow, so there's an emphasis for youth ages 16 to 24, but also we've had people as old as 50 in the program. So we understand that there's a lot of people that may decide they want to make a career change. Something's not working with what they're doing. And the trades are very supportive of people, of giving people second chances. And if you want to try something later in life. Ideally you would be turning 18 soon when you're taking this, but even, getting a year ahead of it is also something good. I see a question, when are the applications due? They will be due June 10th for the session that starts, July 10th for the session that starts July 21st. That's to give us enough time to mail the handouts for the first class, because we do, as Jen said, we do mail things. So July 10th will be the deadline to assure that you can get the handouts before the first class. That doesn't necessarily mean that we won't take any applications after that if people apply later than that, but then they'll just have to understand they may not have the handouts in hand for the first class.
Yeah, so I'm seeing another good question. Do students need to have a high school diploma and be 18? So for our pre-apprenticeship, we do not require that. We view ourselves as preparing people for applying down the road. So in other words, as I think Paul mentioned, we have had participants in our program as young as 17. When they get to the point of applying, yeah.
In the Davenport program, our youngest was 16.
Oh, 16, okay. When they get to the point of putting in their application for the registered apprenticeship, most of those programs do require a high school diploma or equivalent, and most of them do want the applicants to be 18. But it is certainly encouraged to do our program ahead of that, and so high school students who want to get a jump on being prepared are welcome in our program. Our program is not paid, which is the other part of the same person's question. It is free, but not paid. And people who are apply and are accepted into a registered apprenticeship will start being paid at that point. But that's also a good question to clarify. I put a link to the long version of our fact sheet with an FAQ on the back, which does answer some of these questions in print for folks who want to have the follow-up answers, and also the flyer for the upcoming July session.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say one thing on high school diplomas. And it may vary from program to program, but a number of the apprenticeship coordinators I have spoken to said that say that when a high school diploma is required, it does not necessarily have to be a high school diploma in the United States. So if you're a recent immigrant who graduated from high school elsewhere, now the problem might be getting a copy of your diploma, but you would not have had to complete high school in the United States. If you're a group that is an immigrant advocacy group, if you have recent immigrants who graduated high school somewhere else, many programs accept that. And also there are some programs, the laborers in particular, where you can get into the apprenticeship program without a high school diploma. You just have to have the diploma by the end of the apprenticeship program. So depending on what trade you're interested in, there may be ways to get into the program and be in the program as you work on your GED or whatever or if you're still in high school. So I just wanted to clarify that with diplomas, because that has come up with some of our students. People from other states can certainly participate in the program, but we work with apprenticeship programs in Iowa. Rock Island County, Illinois is considered Iowa for purposes of apprenticeship. So when we work in the Quad Cities, most of the training programs are actually in Rock Island County. I see that we have Jason from the sheet metal workers. They are in Rock Island County, Illinois. And so people can live in other states. What we're going to refer them to are programs that are registered in Iowa. And a few in the Quad Cities are registered in Illinois. We can give skills to people that would help them with an apprenticeship program in other states, but wouldn't be able to give them connections to the particular programs if they were outside of Iowa or the two metro areas that lap over into other states, the Omaha, Council Bluffs, or Quad Cities areas.
Yeah, and I think by default you answered this, but there's a question in parallel about whether people have to live in the Johnson or Lynn County area to participate, and absolutely not. This program is open to anyone across the state, and particularly since we've now moved to an online format, anyone is welcome and encouraged to join from any part of the state. I want to clarify that. And one more thing I think we should add is that the certificates that people earn if they complete the whole 4-week program are nationally recognized in each case. So the National Association of Building Trades certificate that we issue at the end to those who have completed their approved curriculum is recognized beyond Iowa, for example. But as Paul said, we can't necessarily promise that we have program relationships or can offer people support in other states. We can only do that part in Iowa. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down to a couple more of these really good questions. Someone asked about a recent high school graduate who's already done or is doing a welding apprenticeship with another employer. Would they be a good candidate, or are they really already too advanced? I think that's a judgment call. I actually would say it depends on what they're looking to do next. So if they are hoping to enter a registered apprenticeship in a particular trade, they would be an excellent candidate for our program. If they think that they want to take the experience they've had already and move in the direction of a construction trade, then I would send them our way. If they instead think they want to stick with welding in that setting, then maybe that's where they want to focus. And let's see, how often do we offer this class?
Yeah.
Good question.
But before you leave that point, one thing that I think it's important to point out is as part of a quality pre-apprenticeship program, we provide ongoing support to graduates through at least the first half of their registered apprenticeship program. And the program is scalable. You know, if certainly I would have the person apply, and then we could see, do you need the whole do you need the full meal deal? Do you need the whole 4-week course? Maybe not. Maybe there are things that you do need, support that you do need, and we can provide the support that you need and continued support through the apprenticeship program to help you to be successful, even if you don't need all of the parts of the 4-week course.
That's right. Yeah, that's important to add. We are offering the class on a rolling basis right now, and the COVID-19 interruption did throw our schedule off a little bit. So we are clearly committed to offering the 2 4-week summer sessions, that the second one coming up starting in July. And we anticipate adding at least another one sometime in the fall before October. So I hope that answers the question, even though we don't have those dates set yet. Will there be makeup times and dates? So that was actually a lot less possible when we were doing the face-to-face instruction, because that, very difficult for people to make up. We are recording the online sessions during the 4-week courses that we're offering via Zoom. And so there may be opportunities for people to make up by making sure they watch the recording of the course and complete the activities if they've missed one of the sessions.
Mm-hmm. There's a question from Jason, sheet metal workers. When OSHA and CPR are available in person in the future, where is the training held? And that's something that when we were doing them live, it was held in whatever location we were holding the class. So when we were in Davenport in February, the LULAC Hall in Davenport was the location, and we had an OSHA instructor who was a member of IBW Local 405 that did the OSHA, and we had a first aid CPR instructor that was a member of the painters that did that instruction, but they did it at the LULAC Hall. What will be true with the statewide is it depends on the locations of the participants. So if we have participants in the Quad Cities, participants in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City corridor, participants in Des Moines, participants in Sioux City, then we will find locations and instructors that are convenient to the participants. So we're not going to ask somebody from Sioux City to go to Davenport, and we're not going to ask somebody from Iowa City to go to Sioux City. And so that's going to be a logistical problem for us, but it's something that, I'm excited to have to deal with, is, getting people in locations that it's been hard for us to get to.
Yeah. Good question about students who might need an accommodation for a disability. And we encourage people to apply and let us know about what the accommodation request would be. And we will not make blanket promises, not knowing each situation, but we will do make a commitment to doing our best to draw on any of the university resources that are available to serve students who need accommodations. The question about the reading level needed is a very good one. I would say that our 4-week program attempts to accommodate a very wide range of literacy levels, including English language learners. The 4-week course that we put people through does not require large amounts of individual reading. We do some reading in the sessions of short segments, sometimes taking turns having people read things aloud. So I hope that partly answers your question. Part of what we are also trying to realistically prepare people for, though, is that depending on the registered apprenticeship they might be interested in, there may be a spectrum of expectations there, and some programs may require a fairly high literacy level, and some might be at a lower expectation level. So, Paul, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, what I wanted to add is we had one student in our most recent class that was a little concerned about doing an online course because he had dyslexia. And this isn't a video-based, self-paced online course. It is like this is here. They are, in fact, not even set up as webinars. They're set up as Zoom meetings so that there can be interaction. And so there are things that are spoken, that are demonstrated on, on a PowerPoint, on a whiteboard. And so there is very little reading that is required even in the online program. And often if we break off into groups and we're doing things, we do, somebody is designated to read what the problem is for everybody to then respond. So if you have that sort of a learning disability, that's something that's very easy to accommodate, and this is not going to be an intimidating environment for someone who has trouble reading or is slow at reading.
And I see a question about where to download the hard copy of the application form. So one commitment that I'm going to make is that anybody who's registered for the webinar today with their email address, we will follow with a follow-up email that includes the link that I just posted to the flyer and the FAQ sheet, and I will include a link to the online application and the hard copy application in there. I do think that that may need to be more prominently added to our website, and so that's another thing that we'll do right away after this. So thanks for that question.
The question about, can I take a different program in the fall too? Yeah, we have not scheduled exactly when the next sessions are going to be, but likely this goes through the middle of August. Likely there will be a program that starts early to mid-September that finishes up in October. And then beyond that, I don't know what the next program will be, but if the dates for this program don't work, there will be other opportunities. And
I think my mention of a follow-up email maybe also answers the question that Danielle had about how to view the recorded session after this. So we will download the recording and also make a link to that available in the follow-up email that goes to everybody who registered for today, and add that to the pre-apprentice program tab on our website. And I think we may have scrolled through just about all the questions that are here. Did I miss any, Paul?
Not that I can see, except there's one thing that I didn't even notice before that we should correct. Is that on the slide with the email address and website address and phone number, you put your phone number, not the main labor center number.
That's an intentional COVID-19 adaptation.
Okay. Okay.
So that is my labor center direct line, and it forwards through to even when we're remotely working from home. So we know it doesn't get hung up in the university voicemail system. So thanks for catching that, Paul. That
was intentional. Okay. I didn't want you to get all the calls if you didn't want to.
No. So that is our way of ensuring that we won't miss any calls, even when during this time of remote work away from the office. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward, hopefully, to having some of you apply. And we really thank also those of you from organizations who are partnering with us and really helping to spread the word to people who need this information and this opportunity.
Yep.
So thanks, everybody, and thank you, Paul, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening.
Yes, thank you all.